And to call on our next speaker, I would like to invite on stage Ayush.
Thanks, Shruti. So we have one more speaker before we break for tea. It's always awesome to listen to budding entrepreneurs trying to make it. We wanted to hear from an entrepreneur who's made it and made it again. So I'd like to call up Sandeep Agarwal. Sandeep Agarwal is a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, internet visionary, and philanthropist. He's widely regarded as the father of marketplaces in the Indian internet ecosystem, having founded ShopClues in 2011, which was India's first managed marketplace, and became the 5th unicorn in the consumer internet India, and also founded Droom in 2014, India's first marketplace for automobiles. Sandeep is passionate about digitizing India through mentoring startups, especially on entrepreneurship traits and skills. So Sandeep, we're excited to hear about your story, and in particular, challenges and differences between building startups in the US and in India.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sandeep Agarwal. I did not realize I was the only one between you and the tea, but I'm still happy it's not between me, between you and tequila. So I hope you can wait for some more time. As Ayush mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Droom, which is a company I currently run. This company I founded in April 2014. It is India's first marketplace to buy and sell new and used automobiles. So from bicycle to plane, we have everything at Droom. And we also sell, we are the marketplace for all the automobile services such as auto loan, insurance, roadside assistance, and warranty. In my view, while you may be thinking that I'm drinking Kool-Aid, but I think Droom is the most advanced marketplace in India. It's a truly 21st century product, which is leveraging data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I would say to the extent of going and saying that we are more advanced marketplace than Amazon, Flipkart, any other marketplace, while we focus on one of the largest vertical in India. And before that, in 2011, I founded ShopClues. Actually, I started ShopClues in October 2010 in my home in California, Silicon Valley, where I lived for 15 years, and then started as India's first managed marketplace. So I'm very fortunate to have these two marketplaces in India. In terms of Silicon Valley, I spent majority of my adult life in Silicon Valley, and I would say that Silicon Valley is very different. In 1956, Tom Perkins graduated from Stanford. He drove a red Mustang, dated this famous author Daniel Steele, and founded Kleiner Perkins. So the modern era of funding a digital company started that time, 1956. In this country, there's no Tom Perkins. And I would say the modern era of funding digital startups, I would say only started roughly 5 years back. So in terms of ecosystem, we are in a very early stage. In Silicon Valley, I was also Wall Street analyst before that, covered Google, Yahoo, eBay, Amazon, Expedia, Priceline, Netflix, LinkedIn for almost a decade. And I would highlight a couple of things which make Silicon Valley very special, very different. Number one, people in Silicon Valley typically have a day job and a business plan in their armpit. And they are dreamers. Every day they are coming up with a new business plan. Some work, some do not work. Second is, in Silicon Valley, you will see a history of product-based companies. In India, we created a multi-billion-dollar companies, Infosys, TCS, Wipro, but they all are services-based. But in India, we don't have product-based culture. And I don't want to go too much in history, but we did not go through 1740 industrial revolution in Europe. And what happened in US shortly before the World War I. Because of that, we don't have a product-based culture. So it's very not easy to build product-based companies in this country. Another thing which makes Silicon Valley very different is really scale. There's an old saying in entrepreneurism that you can build scale only if you have seen scale. So In Silicon Valley, you build product, or in USA, you build product. Shortly, it is adopted by 200 million, 300 million people. I worked with Microsoft in Redmond, Washington, and worked on Windows Vista, its pricing, its market segmentation, and 6 months after release, it was adopted globally by 250 million people. You don't see those kind of scale in this country. And another thing I would say is because maybe it's a labor arbitrage, here the use of technology is not as much as it is there in the US, especially in Silicon Valley. So every problem is solved through a technology. And in the beginning, when you create a startup, solving a problem through technology is much more difficult than solving through a manual intervention. I can hold my nose like this, but if I have to hold my nose like this, it's much more difficult. But in long run, perhaps that's beneficial. So the use of technology is much better in Silicon Valley. That being said, I actually left almost $1 million annual job, a house in the Mission Hills, on the cliff of a hill, and I still miss holding my Pinot Grigio glass and maybe visiting Napa Valley. And one day, on 26 August 2011, first time in 15 years, I took a one-way flight to India and started ShopClues. So why I'm here? In my view, there are 5 or 6 very big man-made modern history, social transformation, and economic transformation opportunities in the world. I think first one was Industrial Revolution in Europe in 1740. Second one was the gold rush in Sacramento and Placerville. Third was, I would say, rise of United States before World War I, rise of Japan after World War II, rise of China in manufacturing as well as in internet for the last 15 years. And I would say what is happening in this country in digital side for the last 5 years. In my view, these are the 6 or 7 biggest man-made modern history, wealth creation, social transformation opportunities, and that's why I'm here. And I saw an opportunity which I thought I was uniquely qualified to pursue. And as they say, there's an old Wall Street saying, it's better to be lucky than smart. So I got lucky and was able to create 5th unicorn in this country, all in roughly 4 years. Another thing I would say is that when I look at India versus Silicon Valley, I think everyone in India is entrepreneur. In US, you have a very white-collar job, very well-defined experiences. You graduate from a good school, you take up a job, you move to a bigger city, and so on. It's not easy to challenge the status quo. Here in this country, even a vegetable hawker is actually an entrepreneur. But the ecosystem is not there. The policy framework lacks, and the biggest hurdle in my view is the capital. The cost of capital in United States is roughly 2%. The cost of capital in Western Europe is 3.5%. We are talking about minus 0.5% cost of capital in Japan. But in India, the cost of capital is 12 to 16%. And while in the modern world, you don't need so much capital as in the manufacturing or setting up a resort or opening up an insurance company or a bank. But still, you need some capital. Capital is a harsh reality of the entrepreneurism, and that remains in scarcity in this country. So I'm hoping that, while we did not have Tom Perkins, while we did not have 55, 60 years of runway before we could see LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, many other companies coming in, I think there's a very big upside to the entrepreneurism and especially the digital revolution in this country. When I landed here in 2011, the market capitalization of all the public and private internet companies was probably around billion, $1.5 billion. In my view, it is roughly 30 billion right now, and I'm very proud to contribute 5% of that. And I feel it'll be around 150 billion by 2018 and could be roughly 300 billion in 2020. And just to give you perspective, United States has created $2.4 trillion in digital wealth all in last 22 years. China at peak has created $800 billion in wealth all in last 15 years, from Sina, Sohu to Baidu to Ctrip to Alibaba, of course, and so on. India is roughly 30 billion from roughly 2 billion 5 years back. And as I mentioned, I think there's a huge upside. I also would like to take you to maybe a memory lane in the history that until 1650, India accounted for roughly 35% of global GDP, and right now account for 4% of global GDP. I think digital economy has so much potential in this country that by 2025, you can call, I'm pulling a number from the hat, but I feel India can go back to 20% of global GDP, because that's what the promise is from the digital economy, and that's what is a promise from doing a company in a modern entrepreneurial style, which Mark Zuckerberg did one day, with Bill Gates did one day, with Steve Jobs did one day. So I think that this is what is in India's biggest potential, and I feel very fortunate that I'm part of this for the last 5 years. And I would like to end by saying that in 1850, 150,000 people moved to Placerville and Sacramento in the quest of gold. Only 8% people found the gold. But everyone who found the gold, there was one thing common. They were in Placerville and Sacramento. So I think India will have a lot of gold, but you have to be here. And you have to be entrepreneur, you have to fold your sleeves. But I think the reward is very sweet. In the hindsight, for me it worked out in a very big way. But as I mentioned, 8% people found gold. So that's what Indian opportunity is. I feel that it's the first time in 70 years after independence, there's a posturing from the government side that entrepreneurism is good, startup is good. India is a very perception-driven society, but we have learned how to celebrate failures. In the past, the failures were not rewarded, and it was the price was very high. I also feel that in addition to failures, I think in fact, forget about failures, there's a more celebratory portion which is happening in this country. When I started ShopClues, it was very difficult to attract talent, while it is just 5 years back. It was very, very difficult to attract the talent. I could see a lot of great talent. They're graduating from some of the great institutions. They want to be in startup, but now they have this life setup that I'm just graduating, I have an education loan, I think 3 years from now I will get married, and how will I tell my parents or my future in-laws that I work with startup which nobody else heard about it? So it almost served as a I would say hurdle. Another thing is, until 5 years back, we did not have local heroes in the entrepreneur side. While growing up in US, you have hundreds of local heroes. It could be Mark Zuckerberg, it could be Reid Hoffman, it could be Bill Gates, it could be Steve Jobs. In this country, all the local heroes in the business were the ones who were born with a silver spoon in the mouth. But now, this country has produced a lot of local heroes. Binny Bansal, Sachin Bansal, Vijay Shekhar, Kunal Bahal, and so on. So as this country produced local heroes who come from a typical middle-class family, were not born with a silver spoon in the mouth, did not have a privileged life, but still made it, that is what causing entrepreneurism revolution in this country. And I personally feel, I'm assuming a lot of audience here are from United States, so I'm not going to use a cricket analogy, I'm going to use a US sports analogy. In a 9-inning game, I think we are still in the second inning when it comes to entrepreneurism and digital revolution. So that's about from my side. I'm happy to take any questions.
One of the questions that we have is that most of the people in India from the middle class, actually, they are very, very, you call them entrepreneurs, like India is a land of entrepreneurs. But most of these entrepreneurs are at a very, very basic level. And you talked about the fact that it's that they don't have access to capital. But do you think it's our mindset that we are only entrepreneurial at a very, very small scale level and not at a large scale level, and it's our mindset and it's not the access to capital that's the problem?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think, it's like to some extent, it's a chicken and egg situation. 25 years back, who would have thought that the world's three largest IT services companies are not going to be Accenture and IBM and Capgemini? It'll be actually Infosys, Wipro, and TCS, right? Today they operate at a scale which was unthinkable 20 years back, even 15 years back. Y2K was the best thing happened to India, and after that this whole opened up, right? Then every presidential election in India, in USA, actually outsourcing became more popular, right? So thank you for those multi-billion-dollar campaign. But my point is, right now you are absolutely right. We think, beside being entrepreneur, I do invest quite prolifically in various startups, and people come with a very tiny scale. It's a scale, honestly, a US company can probably deliver every week. And they talk about that for a year, or I have been around for 18 months and that's my scale. So yeah, I think scale is a problem here, but you also have to think about it. India has a 325 million internet users, right? Out of the 1.3 billion population, out of them, only 50 million are, for example, online shoppers, right? Internet speed is still, the broadband in this country is still not at the level of Japan, South Korea, USA, Western Europe. It's not there. The data plans are very expensive. So, the infrastructure is a problem. There's a problem of, we have not seen product-based companies. A lot of businesses are created by deploying a lot of manpower. We are like, in terms of per capita income, we are among the bottom quartile in the world. So it's very difficult, it's very easy to, outsource the people and deploy them. It's great for the beginning, as I mentioned, but great. So, so I think it's a chicken and egg situation. I feel we need 2-3, blockbuster success. And if we have those 2-3 blockbuster success, I feel we will set a bar too high for what is a minimum scale, which is a scale for a national pride. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Aman's got a small memento for you. So thank you, guys. End of the first section. We're going to break for tea till 5:30 and then come back for the next round of startup pitches.